Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow BYU students. I'd like to start off by showing you a few pictures, and I want you to think about what all of these pictures have in common. Now I'm going to go back to that last one. All of these are high-risk activities, and they require wearing a helmet. But this bicyclist, he's not wearing a helmet. Let's think for a moment. What if the BYU football team walked out onto the field without their helmets on? That's just silly, right? Then why is it so socially acceptable, especially here on BYU's campus, for students not to wear helmets? A helmet protects you from a traumatic brain injury. Wearing a helmet, this prevention, is the #1 treatment from a head injury. So today I'm going to start by talking about the importance of wearing a helmet, especially while riding a bike, and then we're going to discuss traumatic brain injuries, and we're going to hear a story from a survivor. There are no excuses. Wear a helmet. So let's start with the facts. Helmets.org states that by wearing a helmet, you reduce the risk of a severe head injury by up to 74%. They also inform us that wearing a helmet is the single most effective way to reduce the risk of a head injury. HelmetsOnHeads.org states that in 2010, 618 bicyclists were killed and 52,000 were wounded in traffic accidents. They also tell us over the last few years that 9 out of 10 bicyclists killed were not wearing a helmet. Wow, these are some pretty real facts. And despite what you all might think, despite what Al Fox said about the elders wearing those doofy helmets, wearing a helmet is cool. Martha McNeil, an avid helmet wearer, stated that it's cool to wear a helmet because the brain you've got is the only brain you're going to get. She has such a good point. Our Heavenly Father has given us our bodies, our brains, our minds, and we need to protect them. We need to show Him that we respect them. And one way we do that is by wearing a helmet. There are also other benefits to wearing a helmet. Helmets are usually brightly colored, and this causes you to be more visible to other bicyclists as well as cars. And helmets also add added protection from the weather, from the rain, from the sun, from hailstorms, from snow. And this is really important, especially here in Utah, because we never know what the weather's going to do, right? But when it all comes down to it, the #1 reason that we wear a helmet is to protect our heads. So now that we've talked a little bit about the importance of wearing a helmet, let's move on to traumatic brain injuries, which are always worse when you are not wearing a helmet. A traumatic brain injury is terrible. It is when an external force collides with your head. Some side effects of traumatic brain injuries are blurred vision, trouble speaking, hard time remembering, difficulty hearing. Also, those who have suffered from traumatic brain injuries are easily frustrated. They are easily angered, and they will often act without thinking. It was a Wednesday night, and I was in elementary school. My older brother, he was out on a youth activity. He was sledding. His youth leader brought him back. He couldn't remember. He couldn't remember the date. He couldn't remember what had happened. He couldn't remember my family, and he couldn't remember me, his little sister. My parents rushed him to the emergency room, and I was left home alone, scared. I remember kneeling down and praying to God, pleading with my Heavenly Father that my older brother would be okay, that he would be able to remember, that he could remember me, his little sister. After a lot of time, lots of counseling, lots of medical bills, he was okay. My brother says it from the situation. It completely changed my life. For years, I wasn't able to retain information in my memory. I wasn't able to run or do anything physical. I was so tired all the time. Even with 9 hours of sleep a night, I had to nap every afternoon after school. Now, my brother has a wonderful life now. He is a newlywed and he's graduating next week. But he agrees with me that his life, his traumatic brain injury, would have been less had he been wearing a helmet. Now, I hope that none of us here ever have to suffer from a traumatic brain injury. And I know if we will wear a helmet, that if we do suffer from that, it will be less sincere. Less severe. In closing, I'd like to remind you all that 9 out of 10 bicyclists killed are not wearing helmets. that it's cool to wear a helmet, and by wearing a helmet, we protect our bodies and our brains, this sacred gift that our Heavenly Father has given us. So, no excuses, wear a helmet.